Hey guys, this is Mitch with FinePoint CGI, and today we're going to talk about creating a login system with Firebase. So we're going to install the plugin, we're going to create the buttons and create the login screen, we're going to go ahead and set up Firebase, and then finally we're going to hook Godot up to Firebase so that you can fetch out data and store data about the user. So we will hopefully be talking about the Firestore as well and storing user information inside of Firestore. So that's what I have in store for you guys today. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the plugin here. And this is the Godot Nuts Godot Firebase plugin. This plugin allows you to interact with the Firebase SDK with GD script without needing to use an Android plugin. So previously, the plugin that we used for Firebase was specific to Android because it had a lot of extra Android features, push notifications, sending out ad mobs, and things like that. This, on the other hand, primarily just does authentication and database connection. So we'll be looking at both of these just to make sure that we are covering the entire plugin and things like that. So the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to download the code. So let's click on the green code button and click download zip, and we will go ahead and save that. Now, I know that you can add this from the Godot asset library, but I did notice that it didn't work with the current version of Godot, at least at the time of this video recording. You can try using the asset library version, which I can bring up right here, asset library, and type in Firebase. And you'll see right here is the Godot Firebase plugin. The problem, again, with this plugin is it didn't work with the current version of Godot at the time, which in this case is 3.23. I know 3.3 is coming out sometime next week, so that should be exciting. But for right now, we're just going to go ahead and download the Godot plugin. So now that we have it downloaded, we're going to come over here. We're going to right-click Extract. We are going to extract it. And then we're going to go ahead and open it, Add-ons. And you'll see that we have our add-ons and all of our information here. Now, we're going to need this entire to go ahead and do our Firebase integration. So what we're going to do is we'll open up Godot Engine. We will right-click, open it in File Manager, and we will right-click, add in a folder, and call it Add-ons. We will go inside of that folder and paste our plugin in. So now Godot should recognize. So if we go ahead and go to our project settings, we can come over here to plugins, and you'll see that it notices that we have these add-ons. So we're going to go ahead and click enable on both of these. So the first one is the Godot Firebase SDK add-on, so it allows you to interact with Firebase. And the second one allows you to do HTTPS connections with Firebase. You need both of them to be able to have a secure connection to Firebase. So we're going to hit close, and now we're going to move over to Firebase. All right, so I'm sitting here looking at Firebase. The first thing we need to do is add our project. So let's go ahead and add our project. And we will call this Firebase Non-Android Test Project. That's a mouthful, but it'll work. And I will allow for Google Analytics just because I might as well. I'm going to go ahead and use the default account. And we're going to go ahead and create that. Okay, so now that our project is created, what we're going to do is we're going to click Continue. And we're going to be logged right into our application. Now, we need to create a web app. So we'll click Web, and we're going to pick a name, which in this case, I'm going to go with Firebase Non-Android Test Project. That is a mouthful. Go ahead and click Register App. And we're going to want to take note of these items here. So if we go back to So we want to take note of our add-on here. If you go back to Godot main, you'll notice that there is an override config file. So if we copy this, we're going to open up our Godot project. We're going to right-click, open in File Manager, and let's go ahead and paste right here, override config. And we're going to open up Visual Studio Code. So I'll type in CMD and then code dot. And that will open it up into our directory, and I can go ahead and close that. If we open up our override.config, you'll notice that we have an API key, an auth domain, a database URL, and a bunch of other data here. Now, this is extremely important for your project because you need to put all of your Godot, all of your Firebase information into here. So if I go ahead and minimize Godot and I pull Visual Studio Code over here, let me just drag this over a little bit. All right. And then I take this Firebase API key and I paste it in API key. Auth domain, I do the same thing. I copy it, I paste it in here. Database URL, there isn't one, as you can see. Project ID, I copy that and I paste it into project ID. Storage bucket, I do the same. Copy and I paste. And then messenger or messaging sender ID, let's copy that, paste that. App ID, which is our application's ID, go ahead and paste that in here. And measurement ID, so I copy that and I paste that. Now, what are all of these things? This is your API key, so this is your actual unique key to get to Firebase's API. Your authentication domain is the domain that you're authenticating against. Project ID is a specific project that you're authenticating against. Storage bucket is your actual storage, I guess, location, if you want to call it that. Messaging send ID is your specific sending ID for your application. And app ID is your actual application ID, and measurement ID is your analytics ID. Simple enough, right? So if we go continue to console, you'll see here is our Firebase console. So the first thing we need to do is we need to turn on authentication. So first things first, authentication. And then let's get started with authentication. It's going to go ahead and create our authentication system. And we're going to go email and password. Let's go ahead and click enable it. Let's go ahead and click on the little edit configuration button and then click enable and then click save. All right, so we just enabled authentication for our application using email and password. Now, the scope of this tutorial is not going to cover phone, Play Games, Game Center, Facebook, Twitter, GitHub, Yahoo, Microsoft, and Apple. The plugin doesn't really specify anything about those. It does specify stuff about Google, so we can take a look at that. But when it comes to the rest of these, it really doesn't specify much other than anonymous, and we'll go ahead and cover that as well. So we'll enable that one as well. So if you click on that and enable and save, I will show you how that one works as well. So now let's go back to Godot. So if we open up Godot, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a user interface. So you'll see a user interface control has popped up. And then we're going to right click here, add in a child node. We're going to add in a line edit. Awesome. So we'll drag this out, put this right here. We're going to duplicate that with Control D and drag this over. We're going to call this username and password. So we're going to go ahead and create two labels right above this. We'll put it right here. We'll call the first one email and the second one, we're going to call the second one password. And now we need one button to log in. So let's right click, add in a child node and call it button. All right, we'll call this login. We're going to rename this to login as well. It's always important to rename all of your things as you're working because it makes things easier to organize later. All right, so now that we have that, we're going to right click our control node here. We're going to attach a script and we're going to call it login controller. All right, so the first thing we need to do is we need to connect our button. So let's click on our button, go to node, on button up, right click and connect that to our control node here. So we have this little function on login button up. So let's go ahead and say var email is equal to $username.text and var password is equal to $password.text. And now we need to go ahead and fetch our login or go ahead and send a login. So let's do firebase.auth.login underscore with underscore email underscore and underscore password. And we're going to pass in 2 arguments, and that's going to be email, comma, and password. All right, so what is this going to do? When we click this button, it's going to get whatever we put into our username, and it's going to get whatever we put in our password, and it's going to send that out to authenticate with the Google servers. So let's go ahead and try running that. And if we hit play, it's going to say, hey, no main scene. So yep, we haven't created a scene, right? So we need to actually save first. So let's go ahead and save and call it Firebase login test.tcsn or TSCN. I always get that wrong. Hit play, hit select, and let's go ahead and select that. So that's going to allow me to see all of my scenes and let me play with them. So let me type in my email. Let's say kh@maildrop.cc, which if anyone doesn't know what MailDrop is, it's basically a place where you can make fake email addresses so that you can do testing like this, or if you want to sign up for something but don't want to give them your actual email address, MailDrop is great for that. So if we just say password 1234 and log in, well, you'll notice that nothing happens. Also, you'll notice that our configuration seems to be a little on the broken side here. Configuration key API not found, right? So we need to figure out why that's the case. But you also notice that this isn't working either. So we need to figure out why this isn't working and why this isn't working. So let's take a step back and look at why the configuration key and stuff is not working. So let's right click, open in File Manager. And actually, let's go ahead and open up our thing here. And that's because we forgot to save, or at least I forgot to save. You can see if I scroll this down a little bit, see that there's a little tiny dot here that says I didn't save. So let me go ahead and save that. And let's try again and see what it does. And then password 1234, log in. And you notice that we're not getting anything back. There's nothing going on. Now, the reason why that is because Firebase sends a bunch of different signals back for you to pay attention to, so that way you can get information about what your Firebase is doing. So in this case, let's add a Firebase.auth.connect, and let's connect their login underscore succeeded, comma, self, because we want to hook it to ourself, and we want to hook it to our underscore on underscore Firebase auth underscore login underscore succeeded. All right, let me grab this here. Let me go create a function down here. All right. And what that'll do is that'll say, hey, if a login is successful, we want it to do something. So let's go ahead and print success. All right. And now we also need to see if it failed, right? Because we don't want it to, if it fails, we don't want it to. So now we need to see if it failed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to Control C on this and paste it so that I have 2 of them. And I'm going to connect login failed here to on login failed. And we'll grab this. We'll scroll down, bring this over. On login failed. And what we're going to do is we're going to pass in some arguments here. Error underscore code, comma, message. Now, I know that you're asking, how do I know some of these things? And that's because in their wiki, they have some really beautiful written documents here. Now, some of them are not written 100% proper, so you're going to have to do some sussing on your own, just to let you know. But it does give you some really interesting stuff. So for instance, if you're trying to log in with email and password, it's saying, hey, that's what you need to call, log in with email and password, right? Or if you can see that it has signals here, login failed has a code message, right? So it has code, which is an object, and message, which is a string. So if you swing back, you can see I'm saying error code and message right here. That's from right here, login failed code message. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're doing your project, is you really want to look at their documentation to see what you're trying to do here. So you can say error code message, and let's go print, hey, our error code. So our error code is, we're going to cast it as a string, because I don't know if it's going to come back as a string or if it's not going to come back as a string. So we're going to want to print it as a string. And then we're going to want to do the same thing with message. And again, we don't know if it's going to come back as a string. So let's go ahead and print it as a string. All right. So now we can refresh our page, go ahead and type in our stuff, log in, and you'll notice that we got an error code here, error code 400, email not found. So where are we at in our process? Well, we actually have it all set up properly, right? We have everything set up. It's going against the database. It's checking to see if that email exists. The email doesn't exist. So we need to register the email and password with the Firebase servers. So we're going to right click on our control, add in a child node, add in another button here. We're going to move it over here. We're going to add in a text, call it register. All right. And then we're going to call this register. All right. And we're going to come over to node. We're going to click on button up, double click on it, and we're going to hook it up to our control node and add that in. So you'll see that automatically created our little function here. On register button up. So what that's going to do is it's going to send out to Firebase and try to register us, right? So we want to go var email is equal to $username dot text, and then var password is equal to $password dot text, and then we need to call out to Firebase. So let's go Firebase dot auth dot sign up, SIGN up underscore with underscore email underscore and underscore password. Email comma password. All right. So now we're going to go ahead and save, and we're going to attempt to register. So let's refresh. And let's go kh at maildrop.cc. Password is word123, and we're going to click register. Now you'll notice that nothing happened. We didn't get any return. We didn't get any information saying that we did, right? But if we click login, did anything happen? Well, we're not sure, right? And that's because we may or may not already be logged in, and we did not connect our callback here for our register. So we need to come up here, Control C and Control V it, and then we need to hook up sign up underscore succeeded, comma self, and then on Firebase auth sign up success, right? Succeeded. So we'll just grab succeeded. It's probably faster for me to type it, but and then we'll paste that in. All right. So now I'm going to go ahead and grab this section here, scroll down, and go func on sign up success. And let's go ahead and check our document here. We're getting auth information. So it looks like we're getting back some user data here with our sign up successful. We're going to print out sign successful. And we're going to take in, if you look at the documents again, it takes in an auth information of a dictionary, right? So we're going to say auth info, because we might as well just name it the same thing. And we're going to print our auth info. If we hit play, oops, forgot my dot. We try to register, we get a 400 error code right here. That's because if we go back to our Android test project and we go look at our users, they already exist. We successfully registered our person. So that's exciting, right? It allows us to get a user ID. It allows us to say when they last signed in, when they were created, and what they logged in under. So now to verify that this works, let's put a breakpoint here and let's refresh our page. And let's go with ls@maildrop and then password 1234, register. And you'll see that we get back some data here. So we have our auth info, which is a dictionary. It says, hey, kind ID token, their email, their refresh token, their expire, and their local ID. Now, as a side note, I'm going to save this information because this information is very important for future stuff in our project, right? We could use their email for something in the project, right? Or we could use their ID token for something in the project. So what we'll do is we'll scroll up here and go var user info is equal to null. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pass auth_info. And we'll pass that in. So that way we get their login information. So that way we have it just kind of held in memory over here. Now also, while we're at it, let's take a look at our login successful callback. So we can see here, login success, right? So if we come back to our documentation here and we look at it, you can see that their login successful gives us back the exact same auth info. So if we come over here, we can pass in the same thing, auth info, and we can just copy and paste this over here. So that way, whenever the user logs in, or if the user registers, we get their information. So that way, later on in the game, we can actually use it for our own purposes. So now let's verify that we can even log in. So let's go with KH@maildrop and password 1234. And let's put a breakpoint here and let's log in. All right, we've got a success. We got back all of their identity token information, their local ID, their email, their display name if they have one, an ID token, if they're registered, what their refresh token is, and when their stuff expires. So that's really exciting. Now we can just hit play and we're good to go. We're logged in. So now that we have all of this, what if a user forgets their password, right? What if they're like, oh, is it 1234 or 1726 or something like that, right? Well, what we can do is we can add in a reset password button. So if we go button and we added a new button, and let's just drag it underneath here and say forgot password up here. And then let's go ahead and rename this to forgot. All right. Now, if we go up to our node here and we click button up and connect it to our control node, you'll notice that we have another little function here that Godot has already built for us. And we can say var email is equal to $username.text. And then we can say firebase.auth.send_password_reset_email. And we're going to pass in that email. So now, if we're playing and I say kh@maildrop.cc, and I go, I can't remember what my password was. So let me click forgot password. What happened, right? We didn't get any feedback or anything like that. And there isn't a callback for that. So we don't know, right? But if we go to mail drop and up here we type in KH, which is the email that I was using for this, you'll notice that we get a don't reply. So if we go ahead and click on this, you'll see that it says, hello, follow this link to reset your project ID password for your KH@maildrop account. And you'll see here's a link. So if I actually copy this link and I paste it in my web browser, you'll see it wants me to reset my password. So if I go with password 4321 instead, see, and I save it, it says, hey, congratulations, you've now signed in you've now changed your password. So if we come over here and we go password 4321 and we log in, you'll see now, if we look at our Firebase or at our Godot project, success. We've successfully logged in with our new password. So that's how you can go about resetting a password inside of the Firebase system. So what if we want a little bit more security, right? first of all, we don't want them to be able to see their password information here. So let's close this and let's go ahead and click on the password input box here and go to the inspector. And you'll notice that if I stop the project and I re-click on this, you'll notice that they have a little secret button here. So we'll go ahead and turn that on. So now when we play and I start typing in here, you'll see that it just shows stars instead. So that's one really fast way to increase security in your project. Now, the second big thing that we can do is we don't want people just to be able to set up with a fake email address like we just did, right? Well, we don't want that, but we want them to at least have access to that email so that way we can send them like promotional things, right? We want them to be able to get that information, so that way we know that it's a legitimate email, that they're not just putting in, I don't know, some random guy's email, right? Well, what we can do is we can actually send a authentication email to them saying, hey, you need to prove that you are who you say you are, right? So what we can do is we can say, hey, as soon as the register button is up and this all happens and the sign up is successful and we have their authentication information, what we can do is we can send a authentication email. So we can say firebase.auth.send_account_verification_email. And what that'll do is that'll send out an email to that person and say, hey, you need to prove who you are. So if, for instance, I try to register a new user, so if I click play and I try to register a new user, Vic at maildrop.cc, password 1234, and I register, oh, it looks like we got an error here, so let's see what happened. Oh, you'll see that I got an invalid operands because I need to cast that as a string. That's why it's mad at me. Let's cast that as a string, and let's go ahead and reset this. Oh, and I'm missing my close brace here. So let's refresh. We'll try Vic2 instead, and we'll register. So now you'll see, hey, hold on a minute, non-existent set account verification. This is supposed to be send account verification email, not set account verification email. So let's try that one more time. So Vic3 at maildrop.cc. We'll put password 1234, register. And now you'll see that first things first in our output, we got a lot of information here, right here, which is they were successfully signed up. Here's their ID token, so that's good. So we have their unique identification number. Here's their kind, here's their local ID, their refresh token. So we got all sorts of information from this person. So that way we could use it later for our own purposes. And if we go back to MailDrop and we type in Vic3, when some time will go by, but we will get a verification email saying, hey, you need to verify. All right, so you can see that we got a notification here, verify your email for project insert stuff, right? So we can click on that and you can see, follow this link to verify your email. So if we copy that and we go ahead and paste it, you'll notice that now our email is verified. So if we look, I go ahead and I refresh, you can see we've got all these users and when they last logged in. We can also look at, their UIDs and things like that. So now, what if we want to change those messages that we send our customers? Well, we can go to templates and we can actually look at them right here. It says like verify your email for person, right? So you can actually change this and say, hey, from no reply, reply to verify your email for whatever. And then we can actually change our actual message here as well. Now, if I remember correctly, you do need to pay money to be able to change this. So most of us are probably not going to change it, but it is an option here. So you can actually change all of these little things here, which is exciting. And you can also set up your own built-in email server to handle all of that as well. Now, I'm not going to cover that in this, and I'm also not going to cover SMS verification, but these are some options that you have to authenticate your guys' emails. So now that we got our login system working quite well, what we can do now is so now that we got our login system working, let's see what else we can do with Firebase with this plugin. Now, this plugin is a very simple plugin in the sense that really you can only do three major things, but we're only going to really cover two of the major things. The first one being user management and authentication, which we just went over, and the next section, which is the Firestore section. So if we go ahead and go to Firebase here, and we go to Firestore database, you can see here's our cloud Firestore. So we're going to go ahead and create our database, and we'll start it in test mode so everyone has access to it. We're going to click next, and we're going to choose US Central because I'm out in the central location. So let's go ahead and select that, or whatever the default is for you guys should be fine. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start a collection. We're going to call it user data. And we'll add in a document, and we will call it, and we'll call it find.cgi, and we'll say field name, which is find.cgi. And we're going to add in another field and call it score. We're going to call that a number, and we're going to say 25. So there's this guy, find.cgi, that got 25 points in their score. So first things first, let's go ahead and get this data back. And then we'll talk about adding some data and then maybe deleting some data and things like that, and maybe running a small query on this data. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to add a button to go ahead and run that query. So let's add a button. All right, we'll move it over here and we'll say get scores. And we'll go ahead and connect this. We'll just Control-C, copy that, paste it in here. All right. And then we will connect our node button up to our control node here. So double click on this, control on get scores button up, go ahead and click connect, and that will connect this button to our script over here. So the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to type var Firestore _ collection, and we're going to cast that as a Firestore collection. We're going to say that's equal to Firebase.Firestore.collection, open, and then we need to name it whatever this is. So user data. So quotes, user data. We're going to go ahead and hit enter. And then let's go ahead and fetch our find.cgi data. So Firestore _ collection dot get quote find.cgi. And now we need to wait because we're going to be getting a lot of data from the database, so we need to actually wait for that to happen. So we're going to say var document, and we're going to cast that as a Firestore document. And we're going to say, hey, that's equal to yield Firestore _ collection, quote get document. And what that's going to do is that's going to set this document data here with the get document function's return from that Firestore collection. And I know it's kind of confusing and a little weird, but trust me, it's not so bad. It's just kind of confusing. So we're going to type print document. So we're going to go ahead and print that document so we can see it. And I'll also throw a breakpoint here so that we can, have it work here. So if we go ahead and hit play and we click get scores, you'll notice suddenly we have all sorts of stuff going on here. First of all, we get a document back, so that's exciting. So let's click on that and click on inspector. And you'll see doc name, doc fields, dictionary. We got back our data.
And we got back our document information. You'll also notice that we got back all of this stuff. Well, hold on a minute. You know, it says, hey, unauthenticated request issued. And it says, okay, well, we signed up, you know, go ahead, we're good, you know, that's okay. Now, the reason why this was okay is because in our authentication, we set up the ability to have anonymous authentication. If we didn't have anonymous authentication, it would have failed. So let's go ahead and shut off anonymous authentication here and click save, right? So now we just disabled it. So if we refresh this and we click on it, you'll notice that, hey, hold on a minute. You're not allowed to do that. You need to either enable anonymous sign-in or you need to authenticate before you do this. So if we come back here and we type in vic2 at maildrop.cc and we pass in her password, and we log in, you'll see success. We successfully logged in, and I'll get rid of this breakpoint because we don't need it anymore. We are successfully logged in. You can see a success here. And then if we say get user score, now we've got that user score again. So it depends on how you set up your Firebase, but you either need to authenticate or you don't, right? But this is how you get basic data back from Firebase. So you can see here we got back our dictionary with our names and our scores. So there's our name, there's our score. Simple enough, right? We also have a document here, which is right here. And in that document, we have more additional information, created time, update time, things like that. And we have our fields. So you can actually see our field information as well. So you get back a lot of data when you do these things. So now that we've got data coming back, what if we want to add data to the Firebase system, right? If we want to go and add, let's say, another user score. Well, what we can do is we can say var add underscore task is a Firestore task space equal to Firestore underscore collection dot add. And in this case, I want to pull whatever our user's information is. So I can say user.email, right? Comma, open braces. And let's go name, colon, user.email, comma, score. And let's say that their score is 30. All right. And user, I probably called it user data, didn't I? User info. That's what I called it. User info. My apologies. User info. There we are. And then once we have that Firestore task, so what a Firestore task is a task for the Firestore to do, right? So once we have that, we're going to say var added user. We're going to cast that as a Firestore document. We're going to say, all right, yield add underscore task, comma, task finished. We're going to go ahead and print that added user document. So the first question is, what are we doing here? Well, what we're doing is we're creating a Firestore task, and then we're saying, hey, execute that task and wait until the task is finished. And then once the task is finished, grab the data it returned and print it. Simple enough, right? So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and put a breakpoint here, and we are going to try to authenticate. So vic2 at maildrop.cc, and then password 1234. Let's log in. You'll see that we get our little success information. And then we'll say get scores. All right. So we've gotten all the way to here, and we have our add user object. So we got back our doc name with a dictionary, score of 30, vic2 at maildrop.cc. If we go back to our Firebase and we go to our Firestore, you'll notice that there is a vic2 at maildrop.cc. And this is how simple this all is. You can have a single username or single email and then have all of the user information associated with that user email in your database right here. So I have their name and their score and then whatever else I want to put in here. Okay, so what if we want to update our values here? So first, if we want to update our values with our database, what we need to do is we need to right click here. Let's go ahead and add in a child node. Let's add in a button here. And whoop, I didn't mean to grab all that. Let's move this over here and just call it update score. Let me Control A, Control C, and paste in our update score here. We're going to go ahead and hook that up like we've been doing earlier. So let's go ahead and hook that up. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say var firestore underscore collection. We're going to cast that as a firestore collection. And we're going to say that is equal to firebase.firestore.collection. And we're going to say user data. We're going to return here. We're going to say var update task is a firestore task. And that's equal to firestore collection dot update, and we're going to say user dot email, and we're going to update our user email comma with a name colon user dot email, and then we're also going to update their score to be 100. Awesome. And finally, we need to wait until that task is completed. So var document, you see up here how we did this, right? So actually, let's just copy and paste this. Why waste the time coding it? We can just paste it. There we are. And instead of get document, we're going to wait until task underscore finished. And we're going to grab our task here and we're going to wait until that is finished. Awesome. So now if we go ahead and we refresh and we log in, and we log in and we say get scores, you'll see that, our email was not found. So it's actually Vic2. And we'll log in. You'll see we have success. We'll get our scores. And you'll see, we got a null object value here. And you'll see that we got a small error here. And the reason why is because the document already exists. So that's just something to keep in mind, that you don't want to send out a document if it already exists, right? So you probably should have it fetch the data and check if it already exists here. But we'll continue through anyway. And then we'll click update score. And you'll notice that we got nothing. But if we go to our Firebase, you'll see that our score has been updated to 100. So it's that simple. So now, what if we want to run a small query on our database? Instead of actually just getting some scores or updating a value or something like that, what if we want to go out and fetch a very specific score or very specific data? What we can do is we can run a query. So we'll go func query db, and we're going to say var query is a firestore query, and we're going to make a new one. So firestore query, dot new. Awesome. And then we're going to say query dot from. From here we have to pick what document we want to get our data from. So we're going to say from our user data document. So you can see here our user data document. And then we want to say, hey, let us get back our scores. So query order by, and then we're going to order by score, comma, firestore query dot direction dot ascending. So what is this going to do? So what it's going to do is it's going to fire out a new query here. It's going to query our user data table, and it's going to get back the data with the score ascending. So it's going to get us our scores ascending. And we want to limit this, right? We don't want thousands of scores, right? If let's say we're doing a scoreboard or something like that, we don't want to get back a bunch of data when we only need a little bit, right? Let's say we want to show the top, 5 or 10 people, right? So let's go query dot limit, and let's say, limit it to the top 3 people. And then what we're going to do is we're going to query that database. So var query underscore task, because we need to create a task to say, hey, we're going to do this. And then we're going to say firestore task space is equal to firebase dot, and I need a capital F here, firebase dot firestore dot query, and then we're going to pass in our query. And then we need to wait until those results come back. So we need to say var result is equal to yield. Whoops, that's not what I'm looking for. Yield that query underscore task, comma, quote, task finished. And then we're going to print our results. Awesome. So what that will do is it'll go out and fetch out to the database, query it, and get back the top 3 results, the best 3 scores. So if we go back to our database, and let's go ahead and add in 2 documents here. So let's add in Dean in, and let's say Dean in, name is Dean in, and let's say that his score is 200, well, let's say 180. And then let's say the next person is Momo, and his name is Momo. Let's add in a field and say score is equal to 500. Momo's really good at this game. So let's go ahead and save him. So now if we go back here and we place a breakpoint here and we refresh our page, and we say vic2 at maildrop.cc, and we say password 1234, and we log in. So now we're logged in. If we hit, oh, well, we can't call it. Whoopsies, that's my fault. So let's add that in first. So let's go add in a button. Let's bring that over here and say get top 3 scores. All right. And then we will rename this as get top scores. Awesome. And then we're going to hook up our button and we will say get our top scores. Let's just query DB. Awesome. So now this is going to call here, which is going to call this, and it should return our results. So let's go ahead and hit play. And let's say vic2 at maildrop.cc, and we will say password 1234, and we're going to log in. You'll see we got this little success here, and then we're going to say get our top 3 scores. All right, so we hit our breakpoint. That's a good thing. We have a dictionary result here of 3. So if we open up that dictionary in our inspector, let's take a look at it. Oh, I guess it doesn't show up here. It'll show up here, though. So if we open this up, we get a hey code message. The query requires a group ASN or ASC index for collection user data field. You can create it here, and then it gives you a massive link here. So let's go ahead and get that massive link. You can see here, it also says, hey, you can't do that. You need to create it here. So let's grab this data here, Control C, and then let's go up here and paste it. So you'll see that it's going to take us to Firebase. And what this is doing is it's adding an exemption. So whenever you run a query on your database, they don't allow you to immediately run it. You need to say, hey, I'm allowing it to do this, and it needs to index that data. So let's go ahead and hit save, and it's going to allow that group scope to be allowed, if that makes sense. So if you were to look at this, this is the exemption table, and how you get here is if you go to the Cloud Firestore data, and you go to indexes, single field, it will take you to this area, and you can add what's called exemptions, and these are things that allows you to allow specific queries on your database. In this case, I usually just let Firebase automatically detect and do it because I don't have any special needs. But if you have any special needs, you can go ahead and take a look at the documentation and it'll kind of run you through it. But I'll get back to you guys once this is completed. It's going to take a while, so you can go ahead and get a cup of coffee or something. All right, so you can see that it has completed its indexing and its creation of this exemption. So let's go back to Godot, and let's go ahead and refire that command off. So get the top 3 scores. Go. Oh, I need to let it finish. So hold on. Let's go to debugger. Go. And let's hit get top 3 scores. Now you'll see it'll stop here. And look, we've got a dictionary of 3 items here. See? So if we open them, you'll see that there is a 0 document, size of 4, field size of 2, and we have our score and our name. So you can see 25. And then if we scroll down and we open up the next one and we go document, fields, name, Vic, score of 100, and then document or dictionary, document fields score 180 by a person named Dean in. Now, you'll notice, well, hold on a minute. Momo's not in there, and Momo has 500. Why is that the case? Well, the reason why is because we need to do it of descending. And now, if we fire this off again, so we refresh our project, password 1234, and then we get our top 3 scores, you'll see suddenly it fails again because we need to re-index our data here. See? Again. So let's go ahead and do that again and add in the ability to do descending. See? We need to add in descending. So let's go ahead and add that. So it's going to say here, and it's going to re-index. So I'll see you guys in a moment. All right. So now that we got this, let's go ahead and try her again. Get our top 3 scores. Click. And you'll see that it stopped. And you'll see that we have dictionaries again, like we did last time. And you can click on them and say our document fields, and you'll see our first one is 500 and it is Momo. So that's exactly what we wanted. So that's kind of the power of the querying system. Instead of us getting back all of the results like we did up here earlier when we were getting back our user data, and then we had to go through and fetch the data, I believe it was right here, where we need to go and fetch specific people's information, we could just go and query the entire database and pull back the data that we need. Now, the last thing that I'm going to discuss is removing data. Let's say a user wants to delete their user data from your system. You can actually just pull it out by running a remove document data function. So let's say func remove document data, and then we'll say var firestore underscore collection is a firestore collection is equal to firebase dot capital F dot firestore dot collection, and then we'll say user data. Again, we're using, we go back to our data, this information here. So user data, and then we're going to say var del task, and we're going to cast that as a firestore task is equal to a firestore collection dot delete, and then we're going to say, hey, I want you to delete our user information. So if we come up here and we see what our thing is, user info dot email, because that's our key that we've been using this entire time. And then var document firestore document is equal to yield delete task, comma, task finished. And now we're going to go ahead and test this. So we're going to need to put a button here. So let's go right click, add child node, add in a button. And then we're going to come down, bring it down here. I'm sure I'm upsetting some people with my messy button placement, but so delete record. And let's copy that and go ahead and paste it in here and get rid of that space there. All right, button up, delete record connect, and we're going to say, I believe I called it remove document data. All right. So now if we go ahead and click that button when we log in, so vic2 at password 1234, log in and delete record, you'll see that we don't get anything back. We don't get any confirmation or anything like that. But if we go ahead and we check our database, it has been removed. So it's really that simple. And finally, what if they want us to delete the user itself? We want to get rid of our user and we want to say, hey, we're done with this project. We don't want to be here anymore. Right? Well, what you can do is you can call a very simple call here. So let's go ahead and add a button. And let's call it remove user. Let's copy that. Go to our text and say remove user. And let's expand this and put it down here by our forgotten password. All right, and on node, say button up, remove user, and we're going to call a very simple function called firebase.auth.delete _user _account. And what that's going to do is it's going to take whatever authenticated user we have, and it's going to go ahead and delete their account. So let's fire this off and let's see how it goes. So we'll say vic2 at maildrop.cc, password 1234. We're going to log in and then we're going to click remove user. All right, we didn't get anything back. It didn't say anything, but if we go to our Firebase authentication and we look, vic2 has been removed from our user accounts. So I hope this kind of shows you guys the power of Firebase and the power and how fast we can set up a simple user account setup and how we can set up a very simple Firebase connection. That's all I have for you guys today. So we talked about creating an authentication system, hooking up a new Firebase project, and we talked about how to save data to the Firestore database. So if you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. If you dislike this video, go ahead and hit that dislike button because I am here to make content for you guys. Now, this was a viewer request out on Reddit, so you guys can go ahead and hit me up on Reddit or Twitter or in the comments below of anything that you guys want me to check out or you guys want me to talk about. And I'll be more than happy to take a look at it because, again, I make content for you guys. So that's all I have for you guys today. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see y'all next time. Thanks.